Hey, what's up? Scott Balkum here from Imagination Creation Films, and today we're going to be talking a little more about filters. We're going to be talking about ND or neutral density filters. That's these guys right here, or these if you like, circles. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what an ND filter actually is. Well, to put it simply, it's sunglasses for your camera. That sounds simple. It is, except what goes into these is not so simple. You can go to any store and pick up a pair of sunglasses and put them on and go, oh yeah, that makes everything gray. Oh, those make everything orange. That makes everything brown. Well, that's cool. That gives you that kind of view that you like to see out of your eyes. But if you put orange up against your camera, well, everything's going to be orange, and that's not how reality looks. If you put brown up there, then everything's going to have kind of a sepia kind of tone. So when you're putting sunglasses on your camera, you need to make sure they're color accurate. And that's where the technology and the science comes in on ND filters. Now, ND filters come in a variety of shapes, strengths, materials, multi-coatings, etc. But really, when you boil it down, it becomes quite simple. You need the right tool for the job. Really, they're just sunglasses for your camera. Let's talk about when you would want that and why you would want that first, and then we'll go in depth into these. Now we'll talk about a couple of real-world examples of why you might want to stop down your camera using ND filters. Take this studio, super bright. I've got a lot of light pouring in here. So I want to get a shallower depth of field. Maybe artistically, I don't want that background to be in focus as much as it is right now. And I want to go from an f5.6, which I'm at, to maybe a f2.8. Well, if I change my shutter speed, which I could do, I might be a little choppy. I might not want anything other than 180-degree shutter speed or 1/48 of a second shooting at 24 frames a second. I like that realistic film motion blur. I don't want to change my ISO because I like to keep that at a consistent ISO 800. So if I need to get my f-stop lower, then I need to provide less light into the camera, and I can't alter the other two items. So in order to lower the light levels entering my camera to facilitate dropping from an f5.6 down to an f2.8, I need to bring it down about 2 full stops. Now, a stop in neutral density terms is 0.3. So each stop would be 0.3. So if I have a 0.6, that's 2 stops. If I have a 1.2, that's 4 stops. So simple math in ND terms, but they might be rated in either their decimal points or they might be rated in their number of stops. And so if it's a whole number, chances are it's the number of stops. If it's got a decimal on it, chances are it's ND rating. So all I need to do is drop a 0.6 in there, and you can kind of see, looking through there, that you can see the light behind me, and it's slightly dim, but it still has the exact same color. So if I needed to bring it down to, say, an f-stop 1.4 from a 5.6, that's actually 4 stops that I need to come down, and that would be an ND 1.2. So ND 1.2 would be 4 full stops divided by 3. That gives you your 4 stops. This might be called an ND 4. It might be called an ND 1.2. It just depends on where you're at. Sometimes it's less critical. If you are just an amateur shutterbug out there and you're just wanting to utilize ND to overcome certain situations, well, then you're not going to need a variety of ND. Now this is a 1.2, this is a 1.8, this is a 0.6. I've actually got here, this is 13 stops. You can't even see through it. 13 stops is like an ND 3.9. This is really cool for a particular type of effect. We'll get into that in just a moment. This one is a 0.6 in an 82 millimeter round. In the film world, we need to be precise, meaning we really want that f5 or that f5.6 depth of field on our camera for this particular shot. So we can't alter anything but the ND. So we may need to put an ND 1.2 with an ND 6. That gives me an ND 1.8. and that would be 6 stops of dynamic range. That may be what we have to do. You can stack these because they don't have any kind of problems being stacked and added together. Now, do keep in mind, they are slightly reflective, so you could get a little extra lens flare off of them if you're not careful or you don't control that light coming in. With an ND 0.3, 0.6, 0.9, and a 1.2, you can make a nice variety of useful combinations. Now let's say you just want to have one ND filter that does everything. Well, you might try like the ND 1.2. It might be a good in between to do, or you can do a variable ND. Demonstrate it. I'm rotating, it's clear, and now it's opaque. So this is a variable ND, and a variable ND is good for a few stops. I think this one is a 8 or 9 stop variable ND, and it does vary. But if you recall on our previous video where we talk about polarizing filters, you recall that if you take 2 polarizing filters and you put them in front of each other and you slowly turn them, you can create a variable ND, which is basically what this is. Now there are some negatives to a variable ND. One of them is when used to its maximum effect, you can actually create an X pattern in the exposure, and it will show up and it will be god-awful. So you don't really want to use a variable to its max. Now, another thing about a variable ND is they're not the most color accurate. In fact, I would say there isn't one that I'm aware of that is color accurate. They will add some type of color cast to your image, and it may not be what you're looking for. So this is not a one-stop fix. This is photography and video. There's no one-stop anything. Now, these are format high-tech. All of these are, with the exception of this variable, which is actually a Tiffin. These format high-tech fire crests are some of the best ND filters I've ever experienced or tested. They work really well with almost any camera. They have really good coatings on them that just help to protect that image integrity when you're stopping down. They are a little pricey. These can range anywhere, depending on the size, but let's talk 82 millimeter. I think these start at about $80 per, and they could go up to about $190 for the darker ones. Now, keep in mind, the darker they are, the more expensive they are. It's a little bit more involved in making them. These are the 4x5.65. These are for more cinema type cameras. These start at about $350 and go up from there. These are 4 millimeter glass. They're very strong, very durable, excellent quality. But let's say you're on a budget. These are gelatin ND filters. These aren't bad. They're not fantastic, but they're not bad. I bought this entire set. This is it's a 0.6, a 1.2, and a 1.8. They're gelatin 4x4s, and these you can actually buy a little filter clip-on plate for the front of it, and you slip it right into any lens. I think these were like $100 for 3. So, and they're super durable because they're plastic. I'm not dropping those. Let's talk about some other scenarios that you might want to use this. Let's say you're outside and no matter what you do, the sun is just so bright that you just can't get a good exposure. Well, pop on an ND and now you can bring it down. What if you're wanting to do a beautiful waterfall and you're taking a photo of that waterfall, but you don't want stop motion on that waterfall, you want it to flow. But the sun's out and it's super bright. And you can put your camera on a 30-second exposure, but unless your lens goes to f256, you're not going to be able to get that. Well, what can you do? Well, you could put an ND in front of it and bring it down. Bring it down considerably. You could put 2 on there. Now this is a 1.8 and a 1.2. That's a 3. That's a lot of stops, right? That would allow you to get a 30-second exposure in the sun. Well, you don't want to carry around all those, but you know you want to do long exposures. Well, that's where this guy comes in. This is the 13 stop. This one has one specific purpose. And really, it is so that I can get a 30-second exposure when the sun's out. Why would I want to block 13 stops of light? Artistically, I have some thoughts. What if you're at Disney World and you're looking down Main Street and guess what? There's 32,000 other people there. Well, that's not cool, but you want to take a nice shot of Main Street and you don't want all those people to be in your shot. Well, they're not going to close down the park for you, but screw this on, take a nice 30-second or a 1-minute exposure, and all those people blur away because they're not standing still. Now you've got a relatively people-free street. Now it's not perfect, but artistically it's pretty awesome. So what are some other uses of ND filters? Well, this one right here is an ND graduated filter. Now if you look, let me turn it this way. You can kind of see from here it's shaded and then it lightens up and it goes to full lighten. And look, oh, look at that. Oh yeah. Ooh, now I look evil. Not really. So why would I want to use this? That just seems weird. Why would I do that? Well, prime example. Let's say you've got a beautiful green, lush cornfield. But my God, that sky is super bright. And you want the colors off that cornfield to be just as they are, but my God, that sky is super bright. Stick this in, line up this line with the horizon, and all of a sudden we've dropped the sky by 2 full stops, yet that cornfield is still lush and beautiful as it was. Huh, interesting. Well, now how do you do that, you might ask? Well, if you notice, this is a 4 by 5.65. This one happens to be 5.65 by 5.65. Why is this one a square, this one's a rectangle? Well, because this one is a solid, this one is graduated. The horizon, I may only want 1/3 of the bottom in corn and 2/3 of the sky. Well, now I can slide this down until it matches the horizon level. There's also lots of cool effects you can do with a graduated filter, just with screwing around and having a little bit of fun. Overall, I mean, that's kind of a basics of ND filters or neutral density filters. There's a ton of them out there and they might be a little confusing. If you're into photography, then you really just need to buy an ND filter that's going to screw onto the thread of your favorite lens. And to figure out which size you want, find the biggest lens that you have that you want to put an ND filter on and get that filter size off the front of the lens. And let's say it's an 82 millimeter, then you buy the 82. Now you can use it on every single lens. Well, what if your other lenses are 72 millimeters? Well, little step up, step down rings. You can buy these on Amazon. They're super cheap. You can buy, oh gosh, I think I got like 20 different ones for maybe 10 bucks. And you screw it on, and now you can take an 82 and put it into a 72. Or let's see, maybe I want to go to, this is a 77, or any step up you want to go to. You can't take a smaller ND and make it match up to a larger lens unless you're shooting at really high f-stops, but ultimately you really don't want to. Do you want resin over glass? If you're just clowning around and you're just trying to get a little extra, then you can get away with a gelatinized filter. And these aren't horrible. I just didn't like them ultimately. They have a little too much reflection to me and a little bit of discoloration, kind of a brown color. Again, these Firecrests are amazing. And I'll put a link below to some of the Firecrests that I use. But that should about do it for everything to do with ND filters out there. If you have any questions about them or anything else, please feel free to leave a question down below. I do try to respond to all of them. Maybe not immediately, but it's as soon as I can. Also, click that subscribe button, really help me out. I'd appreciate it. And you can click that little alert bell next to subscribe, and that'll let you know every time I upload a new video, because you do want to know, right? Also, give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate it, and tell all your friends about my channel, because I'm here for the long haul. I'm going to be helping you do a lot of cool stuff in the future. I'm Scott Balkum from Imagination Creation Films, and remember, don't let your life lead your passions. Let your passions lead your life.